Guys, welcome to this episode of DAC Talk. I'm really excited. This is a hot topic that a lot of dreamers deal with. This is a hot topic that we all have to kind of figure out how we go through. And I'm super excited to introduce to you guys one of my online Twitter / Platform University / social media / Google Plus / just all around good guy. We read each other's blogs, buddy, John Meese. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh man, I couldn't be more thrilled to have you here because I know you're one of those guys that has worked super hard at your day job, but you've also worked super hard at pursuing your passions. And when we were talking about, I wanted to have you on, and I didn't even know what we were going to talk about. And you sent over what was the official title? Because I know I tweaked the title for DAC Talk a little bit, but what was the official title of your blog post?
Yeah, so I wrote a blog post a little while back called "How to Pursue Your Passion While Working a Full-Time Job," and something that I really I kind of have a lot of experience. We're doing this now, but it's something that I really find like more and more people that you and I interact with a lot are this is really their struggle, is saying like, okay, I know this future of like I'm living the dream and my dream job I've designed and I'm an awesome entrepreneur, and then there's this reality where I'm in this day job that maybe I like it, but I'm not in love, and then how do I bridge that gap? So it was just on, and that blog post really hit a nerve, and so that's something that I've written on more since then. But that one post was really key.
Absolutely. Well, it's huge because there's no prescription how to do it, right? Like you look at somebody else, and the second you try to copy what somebody else is doing, you realize, hey, this actually doesn't work too well for my situation, and it could be any number of things. But that's why we're talking tonight, to kind of share a little bit about what our successes have been, what our failures have been, the things that we've learned. Because the way I like to word it, John, is all this stuff is descriptive. It's never prescriptive. Mm-hmm. It's never, hey, this is the step 1, 2, 3 on how to make this happen. There's some descriptive things and some best practices that you might want to implement, but it's all individual because everybody's situation is different. So if you are watching tonight, if you're tuning in, hanging out with us live, you can use the hashtag DACTalk on Twitter. I'm monitoring that tonight. I know John has been tweeting out links earlier today, and so if you want to interact with us, ask us questions, get our feedback, ask us about anything that we're talking about, feel free to do that. This is completely 100% transparent conversation about what it looks like to, hey, I've got a full-time job to bring in the bacon, but I really have this passion that I feel called to, that I explode with intensity and excitement when I think about it. So, John, just to kick it off, the first topic that I want to discuss is what are some of the common obstacles that we have experienced, that you have experienced, that I experienced, just to kind of talk about those obstacles. And I'll give you the opportunity just to kick it off. But what are those obstacles that you find yourself and those who you talk to, some of our peers, are encountering when doing this balance?
Yeah, so that's a phenomenal one. So there's I guess two really that come to mind immediately, and the first is balance. And this is something I don't think I've talked to some really successful entrepreneurs, and it seems like this is something that the problem that will never go away. This is just this is the tension to be managed. But balancing. People are used to balancing their personal and work lives. But when you're talking about balancing your personal work and work lives, it starts becoming a little trickier. When you're talking about one work is like the job you must do to feed your family, and one's the one you love that one day will feed your family, but you're not quite there. And then there's the actual like personal responsibilities.
Yeah.
So balance is definitely, I'd say that it's definitely a key thing that I've had to struggle with. And I think and the key way which I've really in a sense conquered that is really by committing to consistency. Mm-hmm. So I'm a naturally like a schedule-oriented person. Whenever things are on my, in my control, then I do my best to be very schedule-oriented. But I made some pushes at work to make sure that my schedule could be consistent there too.
Yeah.
So quick background. I don't know if I mentioned this. I don't think I mentioned this yet. But so right now, I'm still in my day job, which is that I work for Chick-fil-A. So it's a great organization. I'm a huge fan. I really can't complain. Love my job. Yeah. But it's Chick-fil-A, it's open from 6:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. As a manager,
I'm very grateful for, by the way, because I hit it up at all hours of the day, as I'm sure you've got several customers who do.
Yes. Yeah, no, and people love Chick-fil-A. There's no question about that. But So typically, as a manager there, and I'm in a training oriented role there. Your schedule's all over the place. You may work mornings one day, nights the next. This, that, the other. But I wanted to get really intentional about building time in for my platform. And for building towards the entrepreneur dream that I see. And so I pushed a little bit on that, and that I really need some consistency. And so I took over the role back in January of night manager, and so I work almost exclusively nights after about 2 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon. So my mornings I get to spend working either with my family or working on my business. So that's been really the key way to conquer balance that I've seen.
That's fantastic, man. And I think the first thing that you bring up that I think is an obstacle, one thing that you bring up that I'm going to list as an obstacle is getting this mentality in your mind that if you truly believe in your dream and you truly want to make it happen, like, you have to make sacrifices, and you've got to be willing to make those sacrifices on a consistent basis. And you even just saying, like, look, in order to pursue my dream and make that a reality, I had to make a sacrifice and work almost exclusively the night shift, because that was going to bring me the consistency that I need. A lot of times I'll be chatting with different people, peers of mine, whether it's in a coaching role or if it's in a just shoot the breeze, enjoy life role. But it really boggles my mind how much we don't equate, success pursuing our dream with personal sacrifice and making hard choices. And one of the hardest choices, and this is another obstacle I guess we're leading into, but one of the hardest choices that I've found that I've had to make in pursuing my dream and maximizing it when I was working full time was clarity of what I was actually going at, because you have very limited amounts of time between all of the balancing acts that you have to maintain. And if you don't have clarity on what it is you're actually pursuing and trying to do, then you're not maximizing what little time you are able to invest, and you're not able to get ahead. And that means just putting off the reality of generating income from your dream and taking your business or taking your platform to that next level. And so one thing that's been really, really helpful for me is honestly being willing to give up the pipe dream of being all things to all people and becoming more and more clear about who I am equipped to help the most and what ways I'm going to help them. So really two things right there that I have found to be obstacles is one, being willing to make personal sacrifice, and two, being very, very clear on what it is I'm going to do with that little bit of time that I have. And I guess let me just go back for a second. The sacrifice for me wasn't actually exclusively for me. It was a lot for my wife. So when we first started, when I was doing side hustle and I was working freelance and I was taking on websites and I was blogging and all this stuff, my wife had to be on board. And I know we've got people watching who are single, and that doesn't necessarily ring true as far as a spouse goes. But your relationships, your friendships, your time with your parents, or your time with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or your time with a best friend, those things have to be put into a balance, like you're talking about, John, in order to maintain those relationships. Because I know for me, if I hadn't talked with my wife and said, look, I need Tuesdays and Thursday nights from 6:30 to 9 p.m. to go to McDonald's or Starbucks or wherever and just invest time in writing. Because for me, one of the big things that I did in 2014 was I wanted to find my voice. My sacrifice was I wasn't going to try to make any money. I was going to try to find my voice and identify my writing style. So is that something that you can relate with, the whole relationships and making sure they're on board and realizing that you're not the only one making sacrifices?
Definitely. And when I first started blogging, I was single, but this was really long before I ever took it seriously. I mean, I blogged for years, but it was kind of all like I had a bunch of different blogs focused on, about economics or about politics or theology, and none of them really took off. But when I really started focusing in on what's now johnmeese.me, my platform that's grown to really stand on its own. That was about the same time that I got married. It was I'd spent a few months working on it before I got married. And so that was definitely something my wife and I have had to wrestle with. The key thing that's really helped us is she needs to know and really have the security to know that I'm putting boundaries around my work time to make sure that I'm leaving time for her. So, we've kind of done what you're talking about, except for the reverse, in that, we were very intentional, especially in that first year, to schedule every Thursday night, no exceptions, was a date night. And there were other nights that we'd spend together. We'd say, have a movie night on Saturday night, this kind of stuff. But working at the time when our first year of marriage, I was working for a nonprofit. I'd work 8 to 4 every day, and then take a break, have dinner with her, and then go back to work and work on my platform.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really important to build those boundaries, to really build those boundaries around our family time. So yeah, exactly what you're talking about, building that in. And now we've got a little one on the way, which was pretty exciting.
Awesome,
yeah.
man!
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So August, mini Meese will be here.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah. So we're thrilled, but at the same time, my wife's been really gracious in that she's really allowed me to step up my hustle now. Because, we talked about it, and I know that I'm going to need to sacrifice, well, not sacrifice, I'm going to need to really just give a lot more of my time to my family once we have a newborn, to help her out and to spend time with our child. And so right now, we're both making the sacrifice where she's picked up a lot more stuff around the house, and she's really sacrificing a lot of time with me so that I can focus on my business, so that come August, we're set up for success. So that's kind of, so it's, that's been really, that's definitely been a balance that I think that tension, managing that tension won't ever go away. But that's been key.
Now let me ask you this: so with you working your 9 to 5, a job so my 9 to 5 was, I was working at a nonprofit. I was actually working at a church, and a lot of what I did at the church overlapped with my passion. So there was great flexibility for me in that what I would take time to read during my day job was actually going to benefit me while I was pursuing my dream job. And all of the training that I had, a training budget. I managed my own budget. It was like $60,000 a year, and a lot of the training budget that I had, I put towards stuff that was going to benefit my day job, but inherently I benefited from my side, work as well. But that doesn't sound like it's your case. I mean, I would imagine you're on your feet a lot of the time. I would imagine that you're pretty much, turned on in greeting mode and personality mode the whole time. How do you maintain focus? How do you just maintain that focus? Because I would imagine if you're like me, you'll get up from your computer in the middle of something you're really excited about, and you'll have to go do something that you might not be as excited about. How do you keep intentional? What do you do to make that happen?
So that's a really good question, Dave. And I've had a little experience on both sides of this, because like I worked for a nonprofit when I was first working on my side hustle. So for a little over a year, I worked for my church's campus ministry. I was the regional coordinator for the whole Southeast. So whenever I wasn't traveling, I was actually working from home. Which was also, it was. So there were a lot of overlapping things there, in that I helped manage our organization's blog. Actually, I helped to set it up. And I helped handle social media accounts. So a lot of the same stuff I was doing for my own stuff. There's definitely a lot of very specific things in the nonprofit that I don't do in my business, but there was a lot of overlap. And honestly, I would say now that I've done both, I much more prefer the situation I have now, which is that there's a very clean delineation between when I'm working for Chick-fil-A and when I'm working for my business. And so there's a mental switch that really happens when, and honestly, I'm blessed in the fact that I love both.
Yeah.
Now, I don't intend to work for Chick-fil-A forever, but they know that, and the operator and the other managers there are really supportive. They're always asking, "Hey, man, how's your business going? This month, like how many new clients you got?" Like, they're always asking me. So that's really encouraging. But at the same time, I know when I clocked into Chick-fil-A, I'm 100% focused on Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
I'm focused on making sure that we train our staff really well, that they know how to create raving fans, and that we're running successful shifts. And then the minute I clock out and come home, if I'm not sleeping, eating, or spending time with my wife, I'm clocked in on my business.
Yeah.
And actually, only recently started actually using a time clock when I work on my business, and it's been really interesting to see how that affects me. But yeah, so that's what I do is I would say now that I've done both, I have so much more energy to focus on my business. Because because there was overlap, when I finished working for OCF, our campus ministry, the last thing I wanted to do was spend another 2 hours on social media or blogging. That's what I just did, So, which I'm sure you can relate to. So,
Absolutely.
that was, honestly, it's been really good. time management has been key to success, but it's been definitely, I would say it's been good to have that balance.
That's great. Well, for me, exactly what you were saying, I did struggle big time with the idea of being 100% mentally checked in at my day job, because what would happen is I would learn something new, and then I would be torn on, immediately thinking about how I was going to apply it to the business, but also how I was going to apply it to my side work too.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I did, I realized that was an issue, and I had a relationship with my direct report where I felt very comfortable, and I actually felt a duty to, I was on what do you call it, full-time salary exempt, so I didn't have to clock in, clock out. I just had to make sure to put in my hours and get my stuff done. So I brought him in the loop, and I said, hey, like when I started my podcast, I said, hey, I just want to let you know, this is something that I want to do. The podcast conversations that I'm going to have during the day, or that I'm going to have are going to happen during the day, but I'll make sure to get my work done. I'll make sure that you're not lacking anything from me. Are you okay if I pursue this? And he said, absolutely. And so, I know a lot of leadership people out there, and a lot of people you and I both look up to, say that that's a necessity. And I would say it is a necessity, but also at the same time, you need to be wise about, how you word that, how you bring it up, who you bring it up to, and because sometimes people can look at that sort of thing as a threat. Like if you're not 100% working all of your hours and putting all of your energy towards, job A, then somehow you're a nemesis to job A, and you can't do both. So I think there's wisdom in making sure to be upfront and honest, but then also, 100% honest doesn't mean 100% transparent as well. It means, sharing based on wisdom and stuff. So I was able to be 100% transparent with my direct report, and so I just brought him in the loop, and I said, hey, this is what I have going on, and if I had something that was going to take me away from my day job for an extended period of time, I would say, hey, here's what I have going on, this Thursday. Here's how I plan to make it up on Friday and Saturday. Do you have any questions, concerns, or things you would like for me to think about? And he would be like, nope, you're good to go. So it was a bit of a challenge, but I had enough freedom in my day job to kind of exchange some of the hours. And honestly, I did that with 100% complete integrity and character. Like, I didn't cheat my day job at all. They got my very best. And honestly, in some cases, they got even better than what I would have been capable otherwise, because I was learning so much in the side hustle stuff that I was working on. They directly benefited from that. And I think my direct report, I think he saw a lot of that because, during reviews and things like that, he was always emphasizing areas of growth, and they were areas that were directly connected to my side hustle. So that was something that was really hard to balance, but I also figured out, a way that worked for me, to do that with integrity and know that I was giving my best effort to, quite honestly, the position that was paying the bills and keeping food on the table,
Yes, yeah, and I totally, I think I'm really glad to hear that. It sounds like we really resonated and had similar situations with that nonprofit. Because I was in a similar situation with full time. Didn't necessarily have to track hours, but had to get stuff done. Yeah. And that was my our executive director. I reported directly to her most of the time. She was a huge fan of what I was doing, so that worked really well. But yeah, now that having that clear delineation has also allowed me to build more boundaries in surrounding not only Chick-fil-A time and work time, but also, as I mentioned before, family time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So let's turn the corner here a little bit, because but I think both of us, we're pursuing our dreams, and that involves we need people in order to help our dreams come to life, and whether that's people who do work for us and we pay them, or we trade out with them, or it's the people who will be our customers and be those who we directly help. But some way, shape, or form, we have an audience that we are trying to grow. And so what are some ways that you have been growing your audience? Because the follow-up question is going to be, the big question that everybody wants to know: how do I actually translate my dream into, money, into finances? And it all starts with audience, right? And so how have you grown your audience to a place where you've been able to entertain the thought of, here's how I translate that into money? And we'll get to that part, but I really want to know your answer to this question.
Yeah, so to answer the question, how have I grown my audience? Honestly, it's kind of counterintuitive, although it makes sense now that I've done it. but I've grown my audience by narrowing my focus.
Mm.
So at first, I really thought like I had to be everywhere and talk about everything to grow an audience. But that's the key thing that I've learned is that the more clear I can get on exactly who my target audience is, which I know this is something you guys, Mike Kim talked about in last doc talk too. But the more successful I become, So at first, like if you looked at my blog, a year ago, you would have seen probably, I don't know, 10 different post categories.
Mm-hmm.
My about page was like, oh, I'm this, and this, and I write on all these things. And if you are looking for something, I guarantee I have it. I didn't use those exact words, but that was kind of the mentality I had.
Yeah.
As I was, John Acuff calls this the vanilla trap, trying to please everybody, and so you end up being vanilla, which everyone thinks is okay, but no one's like crazy about vanilla. Yeah. So I've increasingly I've narrowed my focus to more and more just talking to entrepreneurs. Now I use the word entrepreneur, and to me, like the definition of that is actually much more narrow than like the actual word entrepreneur. In that I'm talking to people who want to grow an online platform, an online business, who are usually at the beginning stages of that, and I've had a lot of success. And the other thing that I've narrowed my focus not only in what I present, but also in what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really, are you familiar with StrengthsFinders 2.0?
I know what it is. I've never gone through it. Go ahead and share a little bit.
Yeah, you totally should. So it's fantastic. So I went through that and found that my top 5 strengths are strategic, followed by individualization, and then achiever, and then belief and responsibility. So I'm strategic. That's naturally the way I process things. Is like I kind of thought everyone thought that way, but I guess I not naturally think in the terms of systems, in terms of checklists. Like everything just flows naturally in my mind that way. Individualization allows me to take those and apply them to specific situations.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment that I realized those were my strengths was about the same time that I took another test that's called the Fascination Advantage Assessment. It's by Sally Hogshead, and
Which
that one
really great stuff.
Have you done that one before?
I haven't. I did the gosh, I can't remember what it was. She came out with it early in 2014.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I took her. She came out with a best-selling book recently called I think it's just called How to Fascinate, or How the World Sees You. But it's kind of StrengthsFinders is about how you perceive the world, and the Fascination Advantage Assessment is really about how the world sees you. So I took it about the same time.
That is it. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Okay, great. Yeah. So the actual name of the assessment is the Fascination Advantage Assessment, but it's usually presented as like how the world sees you. Yeah. So I'm perceived as the scholar. I'm naturally perceived as someone who speaks with authority. I'm detail oriented, and people assume that I know what I'm talking about, which is kind of dangerous. I have to actually know what I'm talking about, otherwise people assume I do and problems. But so those combined really allowed me to focus in and find out that strategic individualization really makes me a fantastic coach. And I was focusing on all these other things and not coaching. The minute I refocused on that, I was like, who do I coach? What do I coach? How do I coach? Mm-hmm. Then that became a huge business for me right now. So now, before I was trying to build revenue streams everywhere, and once I refocused on that, I built a successful coaching business, and now I'm expanding. Like once I narrow that focus, that gives you, once you can make success in that narrow focus, that allows you to expand in other areas. With that same clarity. So that's definitely what I've learned. That's what's been really good for me. Does that resonate with you? Does that sound similar to what you did?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm still going through that a little bit. The struggle is, and I counsel people to do the exact, or not the exact opposite, but to, be intentional about working through the struggle that I'm even having. Like, you feel like when you narrow your focus, you're saying no to a whole bunch of people, and it's like, but I could help them. And so that's really what I'm going through. I've kind of come to the point of knowing exactly where I'm going to spend my attention, and I don't know if this is wise or not, but this is kind of what I've been thinking. I don't have to narrow my focus to just one thing forever. So what I'm kind of thinking is I'm going to narrow my focus on one particular area. In my side hustle, I'm pretty much going to do it to nonprofit and church communicators and speak predominantly to them. However, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to commit to it for probably the next year to 2 years and see how that progresses and how that develops, knowing that I have freedom to recalibrate down the road if things change. And I do have a little bit of freedom because I've got two parts to my business. I have the platform building, which I'm very committed to and generates very little money, and then I have the media firm, the full services media firm, which is generating all of my money. And so I kind of have the freedom to do that a little bit, but that's kind of the approach that I've taken is like, you know what? I'm going to feel okay about saying this is where I'm going to go, this is where I'm going to head, and what I'm really trying to do is decipher what that message is going to be, what that message is going to look like. But yeah, definitely the big problem for me is like I really like leadership. And I like writing about leadership, and I like, counseling people on leadership. But leadership hasn't really, doing that thing hasn't really taken off. There's plenty of people out there who are doing leadership, and I get the whole thing that I'm unique and nobody's going to talk about it the way I can. But at the same time, leadership isn't my biggest strength. It's just something that I really enjoy. My biggest strength is understanding how to manage communications on a shoestring budget in a nonprofit or low-profit scenario. And so that's the area that I'm going to kind of drive down to. But when it comes to this idea of building an audience, I found that rather than waiting around for people to come to me and identify with me, I've decided that I'm going to go out and I'm going to find people who I identify with, and I'm going to find people who are really engaging on social media. And Twitter has been a big part of that. I don't. My philosophy on Twitter, John, is I don't follow anybody that doesn't want to interact with me, and I will follow everyone who chooses to interact with me, and that's just the way that it goes. And so what I will do is I will actually go out, I will find people who are I use a program called Mention, and it sends me alerts whenever anybody talks about something that I'm interested in. And I've probably met 10 to 15 people in the last week on Twitter who are talking about nonprofit or church communications. And of those 10, I've probably had, 8 follow me on Twitter, and of those 8, 5 of them have started talking with me. So I've followed those 5. But it's been really interesting to go out and find people, find what they're talking about, find what they're passionate about, and decide, okay, how can I lean into this space, and how can I be useful and be helpful? And I guess I'm talking my way into my answer. I guess my big answer is determining how I can be most helpful and most useful to people, and how my skills can shine in ways that other people wouldn't shine. So I guess that's kind of been the way that I have grown my audience.
Using your unique strengths.
I love my audience. What's that?
I said using your unique strengths. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So see, you were much more eloquent than I was. It took me this really, yellow brick road to get to the same place that you got to, but that's okay, right? We
got to the same place. I think that's the point. I'm pretty sure.
Absolutely. Okay, so I've got another question for you, and it was the one that I said. The question that I want us to talk about now is, so we've got the audience, we've narrowed our focus. How do we actually translate that into money? Like, how does it translate into money? And one thing that I've found is one of the biggest ways that I have been able to translate, my platform into revenue has been to, and see, John, I really wanted to serve the church community, and I didn't want to have to charge for everything because I know the budget constraints that organizations and, quite honestly, individuals are under. So I've come up with a model that has worked for me for right now, and what it is I've become so confident realizing that I am not teaching from peer to peer, and I'm not teaching from, newbie up to expert. What I'm doing is I'm teaching from my expertise to people who have yet to realize the expertise that they need in order to make church communications or marketing strong. And so having that confidence, I've started to do webinars, and I've said, you know what, I'll do my webinars for free, but the replays, I'm going to charge for those replays because I know the content is good, and I know this content is what's going to help my audience big time. So if they can make it live, great. They're going to benefit from it, and I'm able to serve that community and equip them and grow my audience. But if they're not able to, there is value to this. So I've attached a value price tag, and I've made, probably a couple $1,000s so far this year selling these webinars and selling some one-on-one coaching. So I've kind of translated it in terms of didn't try to sell anything up front. I've done everything as a result of here's what I'm giving you. If you want to go the next level, here's how that looks. So that's kind of how I've translated it into money. Of course, there's other aspects to my business, but that's just one area. How have you kind of taken it to that next level and generated some income, or planning on generating income?
Yeah, well, so first I want to actually comment on what you just talked about real quick, because I think that's the model you're using is, well, it's a digital product, but it's the freemium model. Have you heard this term, freemium? Yeah. So that's becoming like so common now, and actually I'm a huge fan now. I almost never use a service, like a lot of apps and tools, they have now like the free version, the pro version, membership sites, blogs, that kind of thing. I almost never use something now, any kind of product or software that has like a free trial. It'll say like, yeah, use it for 7 days and then we'll charge you $1 million. That's an old business model, and we've now come to the era where what you're talking about, where you give someone something free and you say, look, you want to go to the next level? Here it is. Yeah. But you have to buy in. Yeah. That's what we're doing with platforms too, because not even those webinars, but also every blog post you put out, every podcast, like this, that, and the other, that's free content. That's what a lot of the most successful platform builders are doing. So yeah, I think that's good. I think you're on the right track for sure. Based on what I've seen, what I've learned from other, more experienced and very skilled entrepreneurs. Yeah. But so as far as my platform, or what I've done to really kind of grow the revenue side of things, so actually, so I just wrote a blog post in the last month. I don't remember when it came out exactly, but if you go to johnmeese.me/revenue streams, and we'll post the link in the show notes and on Twitter, it's called the 7 revenue streams entrepreneurs should know and love. So it's a relatively recent post, but it's already really getting a lot of traction, and people are really loving it, because what I did was I broke down, based on what I've studied, there are essentially 7 different revenue streams in online business today that you can pursue.
Interesting.
Now, there are different products that you can create within each, or services which you can create or offer within each one of those categories, but there's 7 main categories. And so the mistake I made the minute I discovered all these, and I mentioned that in the blog post, is that I was like, awesome, I'm going to build all 7 at once. Yeah, and that didn't work.
The Death Star of revenue streams.
Yes. So I was like, I'm going to have coaching and products and ebooks, and I'm going to have affiliate sales, and I had, like, no joke, if there was I spent days just looking for every app or tool I'd ever paid for, finding if that had an affiliate program, signing up, and then putting affiliate links on my site. So, anyways, so what I learned from that experience was that doesn't work. But what does work, and what I've learned since, is if you really get clear on those 7, if you can really narrow down on 1 or 2 and focus on them. This is what I teach my clients now too. If you can focus on 1 or maybe 2 of those, that's where you get success. It's all about narrowing your focus. So I'll do you want me to go over those 7 real quick? Just get them. Yeah. So the first is coaching services. And this could be like some people charge hourly fees, but actually the most successful coaching services I've seen are when it's a product, essentially. It's a package. So I have a service called Unlock the Get Noticed Theme, which I offer, which teaches people how to use that. Brian Harris from videofruit.com, he has a mentorship program called Take Me Under Your Wing, and it's a monthly recurring fee. So coaching is one. Digital products are a second one. So that could be an ebook, that could be software, that could be a WordPress theme, like the Get Noticed theme, for example. The third is affiliate income. Now, again, what I've learned there is this is another place where you can dig in on 1 or 2 where you can put affiliate links for 100 different things on your site. But if you really find 1 or 2 products which you love, and then you establish a good relationship with them and promote the heck out of them, that's where you generate revenue. So I have one blog post called How to Totally Rock the Photos on Your Website, Social Media, or Blog. And it's really all about how to use Dollar Photo Club and Canva. Dollar Photo Club is the stock photo site that I use and recommend. And that blog post still generates me, $100 to $200 a month, just because it's a really popular, and it's really, what I'm doing is I'm giving away a lot of content. It's a really helpful post that teaches you how to use stock photos and how to edit them and make them look beautiful. But then it's also full of affiliate links. So that's an example. Pat Flynn from SmartPassiveIncome.com I mean, he makes tens of thousands of dollars a month just off of Bluehost, and he has a lot of other affiliate income. But that's where actually I learned a lot from him and from Michael Hyatt as far as really focusing on 1 or 2 affiliates. So
Yeah, they're
affiliate income's
fantastic at that. I really do admire the way that they've built that up. That's something that I would love to do. So I'm going to have to take your advice there and drill down on them. So what were the others?
Yeah, so those are 3. Then the 4th one is physical products. So honestly, this is probably the most, out of all these, the most untapped market for like online business entrepreneurs. Most online business entrepreneurs skip over physical products because like, oh man, it's an online business. I don't do that. You know, they might think, you know what, I'm going to write a book someday. That's going to be my physical product. I'm going to get a book published. You're going to be on your shelves, that kind of stuff. So that's one option. But so I have right here, this is really cool. This is called the Emergent Task Planner. It was made by another Dave, actually. Dave Sia from Dave, SEAH, Dave, SEAH.com. He sells these, and he just designed like the dream to-do list. And then he got a bunch printed up, and he sells them. And that's a physical product which he generates revenue off of. So that's pretty simple. That's something that a lot of us really kind of overlook is the physical products we could build into our business. Evernote now sells like business notebooks and stuff, which I have one. They're really nice. So so I mean, I really encourage entrepreneurs, especially online business, like don't limit yourself to the online world because the physical world still exists. So, and on that same note, the 5th one will be public speaking. So this is one that, you know, as we go down this list, you'll see a lot of these, like, is there intentional order to this list? And that's really that some of these later ones, they take a lot to get off the ground. I've done some public speaking. I enjoy it, but, you know, I got paid, you know, $300 once and a free hotel room to speak at a conference. But, you know, other than that, it's been pretty much pro bono. And, you know, I get great reviews, but you can actually build a business off of this. Jennifer McClure, another friend of mine, it's like 75% of her business is just speaking, you know, stipends. And she has a really successful, you know, she also does some executive coaching, but that's really the bulk of her business is speaking at conferences. The 6th would be membership sites. No, and there's 2 really primary categories for this. There's monthly membership sites like Platform University, where you and I both are, you know, where we pay a monthly fee to be a part of that and get involved there. And there's others that charge like a lifetime membership fee. Like Jeff Goins has his Tribe Writers course, for example. You pay 1 fee and you're in for life. So, and there's a lot of different products that fit within those categories. And then the 7th, and the last one would be live events. So conferences like, you know, Chris Guillebeau's World Domination Summit, like Platform Conference or Score Conference. But also, this could be a live webinar. You know, I know some people that'll put on like massive. They call it like an online conference. Essentially, it's the same kind of content you would see it at, or with guest speakers and stuff that you would see at a conference where you physically went, but it's all based off of webinars in a series. So I mean, yeah. So those are the 7. So those are really. I haven't found a successful product or service that doesn't fit into one of those categories.
That's really cool. I think that's really helpful, too, to give a little bit of definition, because that's one of the biggest struggles that I think we encounter as we're pursuing our 9-to-5, and it kind of comes back to what we talked about at the beginning, is we are looking at what other people are doing and kind of thinking to ourselves, okay, that's what they're doing and it's working. Michael Hyatt's generating thousands of dollars a month on affiliates. That's what I need to do. But I think pulling back the veneer a little bit and kind of seeing, okay, how does that fit into his overall strategy? And maybe that's the key word there is strategy, is how are you going to go about making this transition from, you know, your day job to the transition to working your dream job? And obviously revenue fits into that. And if you just go at it shotgun approach, you're going to get, you know, shotgun response. But if you go at it very narrow focused, I mean, you have a much better potential of striking it rich in terms of, you know, finding a combination of product, service, revenue, cost, pricing. We talked about pricing with Mike Kim, and that was fantastic. But, you know, when you have a strategy and you're actually thinking long term, you know, thinking, you know, a month out, 6 months out, 12 months out, 24 months out, and you're willing to be flexible. And I think actually June, Enamour Clothing, I think she says, what did she say down here?
She said she's gonna.
What did she say?
Yeah, she said that she's gonna definitely mix in one of those with number 4. So number 4 was the physical products.
Oh, very good. A little bit lower, she says, I think staying open to change and reinvention is key. And I love that. So if she's mixing in, one of those
Mhm.
with number 4, and then, June, you're checking it out, and you're like, this is just isn't working. Yeah, you may have had a 24-month, 12-month, and so on view, but being able to be flexible and make changes as you go, I think that's huge. I want to turn a corner because I know that this is
Yeah.
something that can waste hours and hours and hours and hours of time. And I want to make sure that we hit it. And it's this idea, and I think it leans into kind of trying to be all things. But when we're looking at building our businesses online, and that's who our primary audience here is, when we're looking to build our business online, we can become paralyzed by technology and paralyzed by all of the services and softwares that are out there. And two things: one, trying to do everything, or two, being stingy and not paying for anything. And so, what do you see as kind of the barriers that people have to get through? Some of the barriers that you've had to get through as it relates to building your business, transitioning from your 9-to-5 job and having very strategic amounts of time, and then doing the tech part, because you don't want to waste the 2 hours that you have on those 2 nights a week stressing over how do I get this plugin to work on WordPress. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So just to rephrase your question, is your question which how do you make the decision of which tools to focus on first, or is it how do you justify the expense?
Man, I think both questions are relevant. Take
Okay.
either one that you want.
Okay, yeah. So actually, I think they tie together well. So this actually comes back to your very first question, which was about like the barriers to success in essence. And I mentioned that I had thought of two immediately, and we talked about one, which was balance. The second one, which I thought of, which ties directly now into this conversation, was really mindset.
Mm.
So this is something I didn't realize I did for the longest time when I was building my platform, working on my blog, whatever. In my mind, it was still a hobby. And that was really limiting my ability to grow because I was like, oh, I can't justify spending $10 on this
Hmm.
book that might teach me how to run my business because I mean it's just a hobby, like I didn't have this conversation in my head, but consciously, but that's actually what was going on. So one day, I just looked around. I was like, okay, what if I just look at every successful online entrepreneur I know? Like, what's one thing they have in common? And I was like, they have an LLC. I was like, okay, well, that's kind of actually like, I mean, that's, I'm sure they have other things in common, but I was like, they have a website and they have an LLC. I was like, well, I have a website. I don't have an LLC. I don't know if I necessarily need it. I mean, my financial advisor was like, well, you don't necessarily need one right now. And I was like, well, I'm going to get one anyways. So I filed the paperwork to form an LLC, and it was like the next week I was generating more revenue per week than I had in the entire year before.
Wow.
It was the mindset switch.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, I wasn't working on my hobby. I was working on my business, Meese
Yeah.
Works LLC. My wife actually helped. She came up with a name. But yeah, so that was really key for me because once I made that switch, then all of a sudden it was about making. It wasn't saying okay, let's say I have $20 to spend. Which app or tool looks the coolest? It was let me talk about making a very conscious, very calculated business decision.
Yeah.
And at that point, I mean honestly, like that legal entity really didn't make a huge difference in the operation of my business. But what it did was it just it was just a switch. It flipped
Yeah.
a mental switch, and all of a sudden it was a business. So
Yeah.
at that point, really as far as justifying expense, that's what I did. I started keeping two separate budgets. Before I would pay for like my blog expenses, stuff like that, just out of our personal home budget.
Uh-huh.
But from day one that I had an LLC, I started keeping a separate business budget, and I added up what I was spending every month or year. I broke it down by the month if it was a yearly expense for different apps and tools I use, and hosting and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, that's the minimum I have to make every month for my business to offset this. And once I surpassed that, then I knew, okay, when I'm looking at purchasing a tool or or this, that, or the other, then I could look back. I had a budget to look back to say, okay, what's my average revenue right now? Can I actually justify this without dipping into our personal finances?
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, right now, I'm at the point where by the end of this year, it looks like I will be generating roughly the same amount of, well, I'll actually be generating more revenue, but roughly the same amount of income through my business as I'm making a Chick-fil-A.
Wow.
But at this point, we haven't pulled a dime of money from my business.
Mm-hmm.
We're using our Chick-fil-A income to cover all our expenses, and all the money that I make in the business stays in the business.
Wow.
So that's allowing me to reinvest. Right now, I'm in the process of hiring a virtual assistant, I've already got a graphic designer working on a contract with me every month, and it's allowing me to really expand and really make the most of my time, because I only have roughly 10 hours a week at most I can dedicate to this business, and it needs a lot more than that.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at right now. But getting there, man, it was tough. Justifying even this tiniest expense. I mean, I would spend 5 hours, kind of finding my way around something that I would have spent $20 to just get done right then.
Yeah.
And looking back, it's crazy, but at the time, it was, saving money. Yeah.
Something that was really difficult for me to make a purchase on was over the summer I decided that I wanted to do more stuff like this, and I said, you know what, I really want to have a good camera. That is a high priority to me. I want to have a camera that can capture whatever it is I want to show, pardon me, and can do it well. And the camera that I wanted was $100, and I brought my wife into the decision, and we were talking it out and the pros and the cons, and it wound up being a huge decision that now when I needed to make a second purchase, because I think I was sharing this before we went live, but one of the things that I do with clients, especially clients that I don't know their business so well, is I do video interviews with them. I take those video interviews, I translate those into blog posts, I translate those into social media posts. I have a team of 4 people working with me, 1 graphic designer, 1 data entry, 1 Pinterest person, who basically does a lot of creative brainstorming for me through Pinterest, and 1 account manager. And so they all work for me, and I give them the one conversation that I have, and I send it out to them, and they generate all this content. Well, that purchase, when I needed to make that, it was another $100, but I looked at it as, I'm going to have a valuable piece of media that can be transformed into so many different outlets and channels and formats, that this $100 is a no-brainer. I didn't talk to my wife at all, and we have trust now. She trusts me to make decisions for the business, and I asked her about my brand new MacBook Pro that I bought last week. I was like, hey, I think I need to make this decision. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. You make that mindset. This is not a hobby. This is a business, and this is a revenue-generating endeavor that we're going after. And so, yeah, for me, it's been more looking at, I look at everything as in, this is what I want to make per hour. This is how long it's going to take me to struggle through doing whatever it is. This is how much I need to spend in order to maximize that. So I joined the I was going to say the $100 club, but the $1 photo club, because I looked at that as like, man, I could spend 15 minutes looking for the perfect free photo, or I could spend 3 minutes, spend $1 to get the perfect photo, and keep more distance between me and not realizing that dollar per hour amount that I want to make. So having $1 per hour, and you mentioned tracking your time, that's been really, really helpful for me too, in being able to justify purchases, because everything takes away from me making the amount of money that I want to make. And so if I can offload that by paying somebody to do a graphic for me, and it takes me less time, and I pay them a fraction of what I would have, what it would have cost me, great. So that's one of those things that that I've done to make that mental shift in paying for it. And I feel like I always drop the Flip Lifestyle podcast with Shane and Jocelyn Sams, but they had a really, really good conversation about this in a previous episode, so I'll link to it in the show note. But they spend money pretty liberally when it comes to getting things done for their business, because they don't want to deal with the stuff that they don't have to do. They want to focus on the things that only they have to do, and I just think that's a really, really great attitude to have.
Yeah. Well, in that $1 photo club, just backing up just a moment, the example you gave, I mean, that's a really key example, because honestly, that's $10 a month or $1 a photo.
Yeah.
The fact that you and I both dealt with this, where I used to use Creative Commons images, but I would spend like an hour minimum just trying to find the right photo.
Yeah.
And then, if I didn't find it, then I'd just keep looking. There were times I spent more than 2 hours trying to find the perfect photo for a blog post. But I was, limiting myself to this free selection, and they weren't really sorted by any. You just kind of look and hope you randomly run across them.
Yeah.
Crazy now to think about that. We're now at $1 photo club. You take 5-10 minutes, find an awesome photo, spend $1.
Yeah.
The fact that I somehow thought by spending 2 hours of my time I was saving myself $1. Like, is that really how little I valued my time? But yeah, I mean, you're in the same boat as far as, like, it's really difficult to really make that connection until, like you said, you actually write it down and you realize, like, oh, well, how much do I want to make an hour? What is this costing me? Well, if it's costing me, if I'm making 50 to 100 bucks an hour and I'm spending 2 hours just finding the right photo, then that's costing me $200. That free photo is $200.
Yep.
So yeah, that opportunity cost, and I majored in economics in college, so opportunity cost is definitely something that really clicks with me, which is just kind of like considering like what am I missing out on by taking this opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. How little do I value my time?
Yes.
To spend 2 hours to save $1.
Yeah.
I think that's a sobering thought. Okay, so here is the last thing that I want to hit on, and I think this is the most important part of this conversation. What do we do when it sucks? If we're tired? What do we do when we're burned out? What do we do when we invest, those 2 hours, those 3 hours a week that we have, the 10 hours a week that we have, and we see zero return? We get 0 followers. We have 0 email subscribers. We have, no one new comes into the fold. How do we maintain the drive to continue pursuing what we know is a dream that we want to transition to as a full-time job? What do we do when it just sucks and we feel like we're no good at what we do? Because I think that's a reality that every single one of us deals with to some extent at some point in time, with whatever it is. What do we do when the dream sucks? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I've been there. I'm in a season of success right now, and so I'm not there. I'm fired up, but I just got, so I mentioned that my wife and I are pregnant. I just got one client that put together when we worked out a custom coaching package over 4 months. It's the biggest coaching package I've ever done, and it's like that one package is going to pay for all of the medical expenses for having our baby. And so like we're in I'm in a period of success right now, but I have definitely been there. I've been I've been blogging every week for a year, and I've made almost nothing in money, and I've built a small following, but they weren't really committed. So I've been there for sure. And really, I can say the 2 things that really helped me get clarity and motivation were to get really clear on my why and my identity. So, Simon Sinek has the book Start With Why. Have you read it?
No, I've heard of it. It's on my list. I've got all these Audible credits, and I've got to download it.
Well, bump it up your list. Trust me, because it's phenomenal. And so he really makes a really powerful argument. At the very least, watch his TED Talk. He's got a TED Talk on this same topic, Start With Why. And he really talks about the golden circle, about how communication, the great communicators really start with why every time. So it's easy to talk about, okay, what you do. Well, you blog, you write, you handle email communication for churches and stuff like that. So, that's great. But, okay, so how do you do it? Well, you use WordPress, you maybe send emails through Gmail or Google Apps, this kind of stuff. So like that's kind of like that's key important stuff, but that's not really your why. So once I actually took time to get really clear on my why, which is what do? I make the world a better place by inspiring entrepreneurs to pursue their passion. So once I got clear on that, who doesn't want to wake up and do that every day? Yeah. That sounds awesome. Like that, that was my why. And that is my why. The other thing I got really clear on was my identity. And that's where, I'd taken these kind of strength stuff before, but that's where I really refocused on those. Took a couple different angles to say, okay, let me talk for a minute just to me about who I am and what is my greatest added value. And once I got clear on the fact that I did have something unique to bring to the table, and then I had a very clear intended outcome, which granted it's a big outcome, but it's still it's a big picture that I can pursue. That's really what kept me going. And anytime I do have one of those down days, that's what keeps me going still, is getting clear on my why, the intended outcome, and getting clear on the who, on my identity. So for me, I'd say that's been the key thing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. What about for you?
Yeah, I know you'll be able to agree with this just based upon what I know about you and your wife and the way you guys have structured your business. But I would say the biggest thing for me has been being 100% honest with my wife and with the few people in my life who are just so close to me, and being completely vulnerable and transparent in telling them my plans and then telling them how I feel, telling them when I feel like I'm failing, all these different things, getting these emotions out of me and into the ears of somebody else so that they can help me process, so I don't feel like I'm alone. So I don't feel like my struggles are the only, I'm the only one with my particular set of struggles. Honestly, finding people like you, finding people like Mike Kim, my
Yeah.
buddy Chuck Scoggins, finding other people who are either at my place or beyond my place has been really, really helpful, because I've been able to call them when I've been frustrated or beat up or burned out. And that community aspect has been huge. And I think there's this mentality that because it's online, and if you haven't connected with a community yet, you feel like, oh, nobody understands and I'm all alone in this. But I think it just takes a little bit of putting yourself out there, first off, to the people who you're close to in your life, and then also that's what DAC Talk is all about, John. It's about being transparent and being very open and honest, with other people who are trying to pursue their passions. Because one of the things that I shared in the past DAC Talk is that dreaming is dangerous, man. Like, it forces you to do crazy things, it leads you to bizarre places, and it instills in you some really weird feelings that you've never felt before. And so the community aspect has been very, very helpful. Like I said, being open and honest with where I'm at, how I feel, with my wife and with my friends, and then also online. I'll give you one specific example. There's one client that I have, and they're a great client. They're absolutely fantastic at what they do. They love their customers, and they're a very large client of mine. And it was taking me a lot of time to really translate, what they asked me to do into tangible, results that they could see. Because a lot of what we're working on is email marketing and building a list, and building affinity and relationship between them and their customer base. So it's kind of hard to see results when you're at the beginning stages. And I just got into a funk, man, where I was waking up every single day for probably 3 or 4 days straight. And I struggle with depression. I'm medicated, so I have a very small medication that I take in order to deal with depression, because I know that helps me maintain my levels, so I don't go to these really high highs and these really low lows. But
Yeah.
even on that depression medication, I was waking up and feeling like they're going to fire me, they're going to get rid of me, they don't value what I'm doing, and it was just beating me up inside. And so I would talk to my wife about it, and she would just be like, if they wanted to fire you, they would fire you, but they brought you in because they saw value. And so her being able to tell me the things that she's heard me be passionate about, her to tell those things back to me, has been absolutely huge. So I guess all of that to say, man, the community, and even being able to reach out to guys like you and just dream together and talk together and collaborate, it's just huge. It's better to be on a journey with people than it is to be alone.
Yeah, community is so crucial. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't say that in my answer. So I guess you win. I don't know, but
Okay, all
but
right, I'll take the win. Shrein 1, Meese 0. No, I'm just kidding, man. No,
yeah, no,
it just
no,
goes to show the
that's
value of community, right? Like, I said one thing, you said another thing, together we're better.
that's true. That's true. Better together. Yeah, that's actually our yearly theme at Chick-fil-A right now is better together. So good. You're right on par. But yeah, community, man, that's so crucial. I mean, so yeah, I started a mastermind group with some guys, and that was definitely helped me through some of the rougher patches. Um, and then reaching out to entrepreneurs in the area. I mean, I live near just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Man, there's like I don't even know how many, a crazy number of entrepreneurs. And like for the first year and a half that I was trying to be one, I just sat at home on, I may say hi to them on Twitter, but that was really as far as it went.
Yeah.
But dude, this I hit it hard this year, as far as having lunch with all kinds of different people I respect, and it's been really great to really just kind of bring those connections a little closer. And because I was, those offline relationships, it's so easy to forget.
Yeah.
Like how important they are with people that you meet first online, like people who you read their blogs or you listen to their podcasts. Man, like I had lunch with Jeff Goins, and Andy Traub, and a few others, and then as soon as I started publicizing that more, some people in my audience started asking to have lunch with me, and I was like, yes, definitely, and it's been really phenomenal. So yeah.
Well, next time I'm
community
in
event.
Nashville, will you have lunch with me?
You it?
The next time I'm in Nashville, will you have lunch with me?
Definitely. And yes, funny story. If you go to johnmeese.me/lunch, you can schedule it.
Hey, all
Yeah,
right.
I've got it blocked out. So Mondays, yeah, I block out Mondays for lunch. So, yeah.
I'm gonna do it, man. I'm thinking I actually have a lot of family in Nashville. I was there
Yeah.
back in October, I think, of this year. I love it out there. It's so much fun. There's a
I'm a huge fan.
conference in St. Louis. It's the Center for Church Communication. They do a certification lab for church communicators. And so I'm not a speaker or anything, but I'm affiliated with the organization because I do the podcast. And so I'm contemplating going out and sitting in on that conference and then just getting a rental car, driving to Kentucky, and spending time with my family in Paducah. And if I do that, and if it works out, I will come down to, if I can get the time, I will come down to Nashville and we can do a lunch. I think that'd be a lot of fun because
Awesome, dude. Yeah. Shoot me an email or schedule it on that link I mentioned. We'll definitely work it out. We'll make it happen.
Very good, man. Very good. Hey, I want to throw this in before we sign off. June from Enamored Clothing. I love this, June, and I think this just goes to show that we are better together. She writes, as far as how to get through the crappy days, she says, I think of the small successes and the legacy of this journey, leaving something for my daughter to be proud of. Man, if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will, man. Leaving a legacy for those who you are closest to, and if you've got kids, man, leaving a legacy for mini Meese, like that is powerful stuff, Definitely. Well, John, we have reached the hour mark. Thank you so much. I would love to have you on DAC Talk again sometime in the future. I know there's a lot of things. The thing that I'm kind of curious about, and maybe you'll have to send me some links, but you are an expert on the Bitcoin too, aren't you?
Yes. I'm actually so I actually helped start a nonprofit. I'm the executive director of the Tennessee Bitcoin Alliance. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm actually going to the Tennessee House of Representatives to testify as expert testimony on Bitcoin.
No way.
Yeah, they've got a bill on the agenda related to whether or not. I mean, they're going to pass it. The bill just says that senators and they just says Tennessee politicians can accept Bitcoin for donations. They're going to pass it. They just want me there for expert testimony. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so this guy right here. I mean, we're about to sign off, but this guy right here. This is my dad right here.
Hey, Dad.
So
hey, what's up, buddy? What's happening?
You're on a live video.
There's a lot of people watching. Yeah.
All right. Hey, nice to meet everybody.
So that's part of the community
my dad
right there.
Here, and he is one of the guys in my community. When I got let go from my job in July, I was pretty broken up. I'd never been fired before, and so I called my dad. And I just asked him, I said, hey, are you proud of me? And the thing he said was, he goes, there's nothing that I'm not proud of. And so it's super important to have those people in your life who believe in you and want to see you succeed no matter what happens. So on that note, we'll call it quits. John, thanks so much, and appreciate you. And hopefully this will be a huge service to others. Thanks for being with us, man.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Great.